What's up, guys? This is Heis, and today we have a railroad preservation news video? Shrug? It feels like every time I've logged in to Facebook or whatever over the past week, there's been a ton of interesting things going on. And in case you're not plugged into all of those different circles and magazines and forums and all that, there have been some really cool things happening in the preservation scene here in the United States over the past week. I know I'm a little late on some of this. I was out in Pennsylvania chasing the 2102. Spoilers, more to come on that later. But let's get right into it, right? First and foremost, Union Pacific has publicly announced that they intend to run the big boy from coast to coast next year. West Coast to East Coast. That means that they're going to have to partner with other railroads. They can't just run it on their own system. CEO Jim Vena is quoted as saying that he had been talking with the Norfolk Southern. Obviously, there's the whole thing about the merger and everything potentially happening. But in honor of 250 years of the United States of America as a country, they want to celebrate and take the big boy on showcase. And that will be so unbelievably cool to see if they can pull it off. Obviously, in some places in the East, there are different loading gauge requirements than we have out West, and the big boy's 11 feet wide. Big is in the name for a reason. It's going to be interesting to see what they can pull off. And if we see the big boy running around Horseshoe Curve, I think every foamer will collectively die at the same time. I'm pretty sure that's required to happen, so that's going to be really cool to see. Obviously, the logistics are going to be a challenge, but it's going to be really neat, and it'd be the first time that 4014 has been back east off the UP system since it was built by Alco and sent west in the first place, so early 1940s, I believe 41 for her batch of locomotives, and that'll be fantastic. So I hope that all works out, because that would be amazing. And part of this is part of America 250. Okay, the US has been around for 250 years. When we were around for 200 years, the bicentennial back in 1976, special trains were run, and they were organized by Ross Rowland, and the Freedom Train was a thing. Pulled by several different locomotives, the 4449, the 2101, and then that Texas and Pacific engine that my brain is forgetting. 610. My brain was doing the Ross owned the 614, but it was the 610. Anyways, those steam engines handled the Freedom Train and were painted in red, white, and blue, patriotic, the whole 9 yards. And it sounds like the Union Pacific wants to celebrate with the big boy in the same way. I doubt they'll paint it red, white, and blue, but who knows? And fun fact, one of my favorite things about the American Freedom Train in 1976, of course, is the 4449. It's my favorite standard gauge steam engine. I first saw that engine painted black in 1999 or 2000, first time I can recall seeing a steam engine and being like, whoa. And then I saw it at the Oregon State Fair just a couple years later, painted in red, white, and blue. So it took me 3 visits to see that engine painted orange, but that's a story for another time. And now for a little small piece of news that Trains Magazine did a fun article on. The T1 of the T1 Trust is progressing quite well, and they're almost done welding the cylinders together. The way that they're manufacturing the cylinders is really interesting. They've taken little slices of the cylinder, and by little I mean they're probably 2 inches thick if I had to guess. They're taking those slices, machining all of the obnoxiousness in them, all of the internal pathways and all that sort of stuff, and then welding them together, post-heat treat, normalize everything, and then they'll do a final bore for both the piston and for the valve, and then everything should be all good. Although those have rotary valves, don't they? Modern steam. It's always a bit of interesting things to learn. They'll deal with all the critical bores once everything has been welded together and normalized such that nothing's going to warp and the dimensions that are critical can remain so. And it's fascinating to watch because just a couple years ago it was like, all right, well they have like a drive wheel and they've got part of a boiler, but it's like, oh, this thing's starting to come together and it's going to be really exciting to see. And then of course, the last piece of news was news to me. Several people have already been like, oh, you must have known about this in advance. No, I had no clue. This one blew me out of the water when I heard about this. The museum is going to be home to another operable steam locomotive sometime in the future. Denver and Rio Grande Western at number 223, a C16 class, so much like R346, a little bit smaller, similar vintage. I believe she was built a couple months later in 1881. which has resided in Ogden, Utah for many, many years and been under restoration for many, many years. And huge thanks to the folks that have been doing that effort and getting that locomotive put together and righted up. Unfortunately, kind of the situation the locomotive had found itself in was that the home didn't really make a ton of sense, and there were lots of challenges associated with the locomotive being in Ogden, and it sounds like the city was looking to see the locomotive completed, but not necessarily as something that they owned. Enter the Locomotive 223 Foundation, a new organization that's come in to take the locomotive, get it set up to operate with FRA certifications and up to FRA standards so that it can travel across the remnants of the DNRGW system, much like we take 20 and eventually we'll take 346 as well. And then after a period of time, it's going to come live with us at the museum. We're going to need a bigger boat. I had no clue about this one beforehand. There's a lot of things that I hear about early on, and it's like, okay, I gotta keep this a secret, and I'm basically the media at this point, right? So there's a lot of stuff that I've heard, and like, okay, I can't say anything, like 20 going to Durango, which is coming up very soon here, I knew about for years in advance of it actually being finally penned in and finished, and even when it was confirmed, it was months. But this one, Leighton posted in our group chat, the museum Steam Crew group chat. Here you go. Like, hey, we're getting a new toy. It's like, huh? What? Holy crap! Like that's incredible. So we're gonna get a C16 operating, which is really cool. They're neat engines. They were probably the biggest class engines the Rio Grande had back in the day. Only 3 survived: the 223, 268, and 278. But 223 is gonna run. It's going to get restored, and it's going to be run on the main line, whatever the narrow gauge equivalent of main line could possibly look like. But, you know, you get the idea. There's the meme. It's going to be fantastic to see 223 done, and then it's going to eventually come live with us at the museum, and presumably that means I'll have hands on it at some point, which is really cool. I have no clue. I don't know what the restoration's going to look like. I don't know who's doing it. I don't know where it's going for any of that sort of stuff. I don't know if I'll be involved. Like I said, this was totally like, oh yeah, mic drop, hey, new steam locomotive, here you go. Oh. So that's fantastic to see. We're really excited to see the 223 come join us at the museum. And goodness, again, huge thanks to the folks out in Utah that have been the stewards for that locomotive for a long time. It has been under restoration for a large number of years, and it was an old little C-class Rio Grande engine. It was beat up. And so a lot of work has already been done, but still more to go, of course, and that's what's next for that engine. It's just kind of wild to me that it's like, oh, bing, 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 all 3 of these things happened kind of this week. So I figured, hey, you probably aren't plugged in out there on YouTube as much, and maybe you come to me for your news. Shrug. So it felt important for me to cover these couple topics and explain a little bit of context around them. Big boy coast to coast, dope. T1, very excited. I'm a backer of the T1. I'm very excited to see where that goes, and I want to come see it when it's got an open house sometime. And then, of course, 4th steam engine for the museum that runs. Yeah, we're going to have to figure out something about that. There's not enough space in the shop to have all the operable engines and restore things in the shop. And I don't know anything about any plans there either. It's just something that's got to get done. But anyway, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Catch y'all next time.